Hello, my name is Finn. Welcome to another Autodesk Inventor tutorial. Today we're going to be looking at part basics, specifically base features, the first sketch, extrusions, and revolutions. So in front of you, you should be able to see a reasonably complex part file. This part file is made up of multiple features and they're ordered chronologically in the browser window here on the left, starting with the extrusion, moving all the way through to the three holes at the end. So then, the base feature is the first feature you use to create your part file once you've opened and created your first sketch. And it's expressly important because this is the one that you base all the other features. So to start with, when you first create a new IPT file and you start your first sketch, you'll be asked what plane do you want to create the sketch on. And this is where you need to be thinking about your model and where it is created in relation to the way it needs to be made. So, for example, the front plane here on the view cube aligns with the front plane here of the XY. If I move to the back side there with my kind of lateral thinking skills, that would be the back side of the view cube. And in the same way, all the other planes are also named and oriented with this view cube. The front, the right, the top, the bottom, the left, the back. So, clicking on the XY plane, I'm going to move into the front perspective. I'm looking from the front into the object. Now, if I am then going to use the sketch features that we've designed before, I'm going to create two profiles. Profiles are made up of a single continuous loop. So, these two profiles here are fairly basic and only contain one shape, a circle. The other loop has a single rectangle. However, you could create more complex ones that we have done in the past with multiple loops to create that single profile. Now, when you exit this sketch, we can select either of these two profiles as shapes to be created, and to do this we're going to use the extrusion tool. As it's creating, it's in the creation panel, which is part of the 3D model tab. Using the extrusion button here, we can click on the rectangular box. And you can see now, using numbers and numerics, I can create this to a certain size, and it's previewed for me, for example. That's how the extrusion tool works. It works by giving a third dimension to two-dimensional sketches. Thus, we create a 3D object. Using the revolution tool now, I can select a profile. In this case, I'm going to do the circle. And then using the axis option, I select a single axis for that circle to be rotated around to turn it into a 3D shape. Okay, and you can see here how I've done that. If you look at the options here, you can see that you can change the number of degrees that this is rotated around that axis as a form of dimensioning, as a constraint. So you could create partial, full circles. Moving to another small part here, we can use the extrusion and revolution tools in different ways. For example, using the extrude tool on this profile, I can select numerically in preview how big I'd like to create it to, 10, 20, even 30. I can also change the dimension style, so rather than a numerical dimension, I could change it to the next face or body. I could change it, in this situation it's cutting, to the next selected part. For example here, I could change it to between two faces and planes. If this is the first place, this would be the second plane. You can also use extrusions to remove material. For example, if I select these options here, I could also have done it down here in the preview, in the smaller toolbox. I can then select either a distance or a different dimension style to next, as an example, or even through all, as an example. And you can see now how we can use the extrusion, revolution, and profiles to create features that then affect our part files, and thus enable us to design our 3D objects. Thank you for listening.